Hola,
Hello, Steve. How are
¿cómo
you?
estás, Simon? ¿Me oyes bien?
Perfecto. Are you going to give it in English or Spanish? It's up to you.
English with a side of Spanish, I
Great.
think.
Perfect. That'll give it
Spanglish.
a great mix. So, to anyone who's joining us, this is Steve Giralt. He's joining us from New York. Just wanted to give him a quick intro. He's a visual engineer, and what's very particular about him is that he's one of the few persons that can manage both sides of his brain. So he has a creative side and the technical side. Usually people are only technical and not very creative, or people that are creative don't have the tools to express themselves, especially in technical sides. So Steve has been able to manage and harness both things. So he's going to tell us a little bit about visual engineering and what he's done for brands, especially communication for brands, using some amazing tools. So if you're ready to start, the stage is yours.
I am going to share my screen.
Great, go ahead.
And we're not sure if the audio works in the videos I'm going to play, but it doesn't matter.
You have to show them on Chrome. Is it possible for you to open them in your browser?
No, because they're like offline only, but it's fine. The audio doesn't matter. The videos still work fine, right?
You can open with. If you give it a right click, open with, and you select Chrome, it should open on a separate tab.
Let's see if I can save this and do this. We're gonna try. We're gonna learn. We're learning engineering right now. Exactly. Here, where is this desktop? Let's see if it lets me do that.
Yeah, we'll try, so we can listen to something fun.
The thing is, it's a keynote. It's not a PDF or anything. But I'll try.
We'll try. What's the format of the video?
Well, because it's not just a video; it's a whole presentation with videos.
Oh, okay. Then in that case, then let's just share the keynote screen.
Yeah, that's what I was doing before. Once again, the sound is just for effect. Okay. It's not, you'll still get everything we're doing.
If you have a link to the video, if it's on YouTube or anything, you can share it to me on the private chat, and I'll publish it somewhere. So,
cool. So are you seeing my screen now?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
I'm gonna leave you. I'll be on the backstage. You have the mic.
All right. Thank you, Simon. All right, and hello everybody. Thank you for joining me today. This is really fun. I'm excited to share with you what I do, how I got here a little bit, and how it could make your path towards doing something really fun and enjoyable in your life, and that's really creative, really interesting. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about creativity, innovation, technology, making visuals, making your own business, all these things that are part of what I do for a living. So here, I'm going to give you a taste of some of the behind the scenes of the work that we do. So we make TV commercials for big brands like Budweiser and Pepsi and Coke and, pizza companies and, you name it. A big thing about, as you see, the work we do is we use a lot of robotics, we use a lot of cutting edge technology and all sorts of really kind of crazy engineering type things to do the work that we do. And, we throw burgers in the air and then we play with fire and we do all sorts of good, fun stuff. But this kind of gives you a little bit of a sense of, oh, whoops, I lost the video real quick. Sorry. And then this is some of the work that we do as well. So this is some of the end results. So as you see, it's all slow motion. It's really explosive and graphic and really fun and interesting. And so much of this is the work that we are doing now. And I'll let you just watch a little bit of this real quick and then we'll jump into it. Okay. So as you see, we really like to bend, the way things look and feel and really bring you in close to the products in a really awesome way so that it looks really different than what you see every day. And this is all real. This is not CGI. This is stuff that we're doing. A lot of this stuff happens in less than half a second of time, but we're slowing it down using a phantom slow motion camera to capture these moments. But so much about them is really about what is happening in front of the camera, and the rigs and the creative things that we create for that. So here, I'll go back to talking a little bit. So I am originally from Miami. My parents are Cuban. Yo soy cubano. Hablo un poco de español, pero no perfecto. I grew up with a family of engineers. So, this is our fake portrait of our family. So my dad was an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer. My brother was an engineer. It was just who we were. We were an engineering family. And I kind of grew up around that. But I wasn't like, oh, I want to be an engineer when I grow up. I picked up a camera when I was in high school, when I was, 15 years old. And I started taking pictures. And I'm like, I want to be an artist. And I want to, take photographs for a living. So that's what I did. I went to RIT, which is a school in Rochester, New York in the US. And I studied commercial photography. After that, right after I moved to New York City, after I graduated, and I started working for other photographers, taking pictures and videos and assisting them in their process and learning the business and all of that. And funny enough, I became a photographer. That's what I wanted to do. And I was lucky enough to be able to do it. So I started shooting photographs for ads for people like Starbucks and, Verizon, and Timberland and Reese's and Hershey's and Pepsi, and Jack Daniel and Captain Morgan, sorry, Pepsi, Heinz. I shot food chefs like Bobby Flay, who's a famous chef, and Lydia Bastianich, and I got to do like really cool microscopic imaging too. This is like using a microscope lens, shooting a piece of a pickle for Burger King. And then this is integrating CGI into the real food that we shoot. But nonetheless, the work I created was all about making the food look delicious, making the beverage look amazing, all this stuff. And I was truly living my dream as the artist I said I would be when I grew up. But slowly things started changing. And I kind of got a little bored of just being a photographer. I was like, oh, I want to do more than just take pictures. So this is where I call it my call to engineering, where I really wanted to do something more. I didn't want to just be doing engineering, just photography. So as a hobbies, I started taking classes in woodworking and welding and electronic circuits and power supplies and Arduinos, which are little microcomputers, and plastics and epoxies, and all these kind of really random classes I would take at night after I was done working. Just because, once again, my hobby became my career, so I needed a new hobby. And I was just, once again, I grew up in this house of engineering and always fixing things yourself and doing things yourself. And because of that, I guess it was in my blood. So after a little while of doing that, I was like, how do I bring together photography with all this technology and building stuff that I like to do? And also my new interest in my creative work was also getting into cinematography or videos. So I wanted to try to bring all this stuff together and to make one kind of pool of things I could do, since they're all things I really love doing. So I kind of got inspired by this ad I shot for Budweiser. It was called Bud and Burgers. And it was all about shooting these amazing burgers in all their different layers. Like this one has avocado and bacon and an egg and onions and cheese. And I wanted to show that, but as a photograph, I thought it could be done better as a video. So that inspired me to do what became a viral video, which was my burger drop video here, which was got crazy viral and was really amazing. But the amazing thing about this is that this is a self-produced test that I did just for myself. And it was really the behind the scenes of that went viral. People were like, oh my gosh, you really did that. You did that in camera. And here's some of the pre-renders I made early on in my testing to figure out how I was going to do this thing. Once again, I never used a camera robot before. I never really built any microcircuit things before. Like, this is all completely new, but I put all this knowledge together, and I built this thing called Patrick, which was basically just a regular kind of a device that triggered motors and switches and basically worked out the timing of this shot here, where the timing of everything was super precise, where I cut rubber bands out from underneath the burger layers to make it all land together. I even 3D printed this double catapult here, which was really amazingly fun too. And once again, my first time really using a 3D printer. And with all that, it kind of taught me that really what I'm doing is I'm using modern technology to solve visual problems. So first and foremost, I am a creative. I'm an artist. I create videos for clients, and once again, I need to know that first, in my opinion. And then the engineering comes in, and the technology is to help me tell the stories I want to tell. So that's kind of where I came up with visual engineering, which is basically really combining right and left brain, creativity in engineering in creativity, and kind of really, kind of crashing them together in a really amazing, fun way. And it has really opened my eyes and the possibilities of my career as to what I could do. And it's been super fun. And, just to sidebar for a moment on like, by a lot of people, I'm known as like the robot guy who uses like all these robots and the crazy stuff I do. And it's true. I think most people think of robots as like this, that, they do same thing that they do all day long, every single day of their life. Or robocalls, or basically factories and stuff. But our robots we're industrial robots that have been modified to put a camera on them. We put lights on them. We grab things with them. We throw things with them. The cool thing about the robotics is that they do things exactly the same way every single time. So it's super repeatable, and it's really amazing when I'm kind of working in these like millisecond timelines where like this has to happen right before this, and then this and this, all like this fast. So for us, the robots have been amazing. So we have 3 robots that we gave them names: Bob, Johnny 5, and Robbie. And they like to party. They like to have drinks on them, and they pour a lot of drinks. And here's just an example of how precise the robot could be in this shot that is for Bud Light. You can see this is the cameras on the robot with this very special, it's called a probe lens, but could squeeze right through the cans and get shots that otherwise would be impossible to do. And at the end of the day, I don't want a robot just to have a robot, but I want to basically let them do what they do really well, which is to do things over and over in a really repeatable way, and let me as the human do what I do best, which is come up with a really creative idea on things that the robots can do to make visuals really cool for people. And this brings us to the next thing I want to talk about, and actually what I want to maybe talk about a little longer than the intro up to my time now, is innovation. I think this is a word you hear used a lot. Everyone says innovation. The reality is you can innovate in anything you do. You hear it in software, in hardware, in the way a business is run. Like Uber changed the taxi world through innovation, through software. So for us, the film industry has been doing things a lot in the same way for a long time. And I think that was a good thing for me coming from photography, was I wasn't brought up, I didn't go to a film school per se. I didn't learn how to be a director from a film school program. I kind of learned photography, and I learned the rest myself, and kind of figured out, how I work as a director and DP, and how I could bring that to my clients and everybody that I do work for. So, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about innovation. And my challenge is I want to innovate the way that we create visuals and push the limits of what is actually possible to be done with a camera and with lights and the traditional methods, as much as you could say. And here at our studio, we've spent a lot of time on that. So if we're not shooting a job for a client, we're concentrating on innovation and how do we make things possible that aren't possible before. And for this, for some of those some of you might not understand our industry as much, there's certain shots that people know, like the burger bounce thing and the beer pouring and like flying into the cup. And we want to, for me as a creative and as an engineer, both forces fight each other a lot. And that, as an example, let's say, NASA and space exploration, like you have, the scientists that are like, we want to go to Mars. And that's an amazing idea. And that's the same as me as a creative being like, I want to do this kind of crazy shot with the burger flying in the air and whatever. But then you still are limited by the engineering. So, the scientist wants to go to Mars, but the engineers are like, it's not possible. Like, we don't have the ability, and we don't have there's no oxygen, and there's all these problems that they basically tell the scientists, like, this isn't going to be possible, at least right now. And that's the same thing with me, with my engineering side. Like, I might come up with a really crazy concept shot that I want to do, and then we need to figure out, using the engineering side of my thought and my team here as well, is it possible? Can we go to Mars? Can we, make, 500 pancakes step on top of each other? Or can we make, a taco explode in midair, or whatever it is? We are consistently doing innovation and really testing the bounds of what is possible that we could actually do given today's, whatever is available. That's where we spend a lot of time doing research and going to, technology shows and manufacturing shows and, hydraulic stores and, plumbing stores and you name it. We go all over the place looking for, technologies or processes that we could innovate and incorporate into the work that we do. And I think that's something that you could do at any level. I think a lot of people look at my work and they're like, oh, you need the robots and the crazy cameras or whatever. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I didn't always have these tools. I got here now, but I think if you really want to do creative visual storytelling and you're like, oh, I really want to do this, then you could start with your iPhone or your smartphone, whatever you have, and things that you find around the house or in your garage, or things that you could buy for less than $20, or something at your local hardware store. So it brings me to the fact that, remember that I am actually not an engineer. I'm just solving visual problems using science and technology, and you could do this too. And going into our future, a big thing that we're starting, and we actually started it up right as coronavirus hit and everything started locking down. We started the Garage Learning. So the Garage Learning is basically our education platform. Here's the link to it here at the bottom. And with the Garage Learning, we are going to start an online school teaching the art of visual engineering and the science of visual engineering. So with that, we're going to be teaching classes in all the things that I learned to get where I'm at. So we're going to be teaching classes in, electronic circuits and pneumatics, which is the use of air to propel things. Basically, electronic circuits and Arduino as a microprocessor that you could use. That's $30 to buy. And we want to empower the youth of tomorrow and today to be able to create visuals like never before, using tools that people have never used before either. If I told you 10 years ago that you could use a smartphone to shoot a TV commercial or a full-length feature film, you think I'm crazy. But the reality is times are changing, and that is a possibility in today's time, where these devices could do more than we even imagined they could do. And I think a lot people in the film world and commercial world that I live in underestimate how quickly things could change and how the right creative idea could truly innovate the process and everything that we do, being that it is really interesting in that it's always changing. Like the way we shoot commercials today should be different than the way we shoot commercials a month from now, a year from now, 10 years from now. And I think that's one big thing in the way we create the work that we do, is realizing that I never want to shoot the same job twice. I don't want to do the same shot over and over and over. To me, it's all about, pushing your own personal limits and your own comfort level every single day. And it's incremental change. I think we spend a lot of time making mistakes and playing around and, just, trying things to see, what happens if we do this? Or what if we add 10 more, PSI of pressure to something? Or what if we, drop it from even higher? Or, constantly we're changing the way we try things so that we can learn. So every day that we're working, we're learning. And I think that's one of the most exciting things for me about the work that we do, is that we're programmed from day one, the way I run the company, to question everything and how we do everything, and wanting to improve and being okay with failure. And I think that's one thing as a creative and as an engineer for you to keep in mind, and the fact that no matter what, you have to be okay with failing, because that's the only way you learn and the way you make things better. For me, it's always, creativity is always stronger than the tools that we use. Like I always say, creativity trumps tools. Don't be limited by thinking you can't do something creative because you don't have, a $50,000 camera or a robot or whatever it is. Like, what we are going to be teaching partially as part of the Garage Learning is that with little things you could do a lot. We did this one soda can video. Let me see if I could actually stop screen. And let me see if I could share with you real quick. And actually, if some of you are not following me yet, you could follow me on Instagram at Steve Giralt or at The Garage Learning. But let me see here. Let me share this Chrome tab. Share screen. Here we go. So here we go. So this is something we did early on using nothing but an iPhone and some fishing line. So you see here, we just basically drag the camera along the table, and the movement of the camera itself is what actually moved the cans out of the way and spun the can and did all that. So at the end of the day, all this really was a phone and some fishing line, and that made a really cool shot if you came up with the thought of doing that. Also, we could show some other stuff here that we do some really fun, crazy ideas as well. It's kind of a little compilation. Yeah, 2020 definitely became epic. I'm trying to show you some more examples of some of the things that we have done that are actually pretty simple. So this is also a catapult we made with just a bungee cord and a piece of wood, basically. So this is Matt from our team that created this. So you can see there that I'm trying to get myself back to you guys. Cool. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. So as you see, just being a little creative and thinking outside the box, you could truly create awesome imagery and do really creative things. And at the end of the day, learn along the way. So the big hope of what we're trying to start teaching is that just by learning basics and building on those basics, like learning about how motors work, learning about how pneumatics work with air powered things, learning the basics of all these kind of simple processes allow you to group them all together and do really cool things that most other people can't really do if you didn't think it was possible. So with that, if anybody has any questions, I don't know if I could see any questions, I guess. Oh, there's Simon. Oh, your mic is off.
Hi.
Hello. I was just wrapping up what I was saying. I didn't know if anybody had questions out there at all.
Yeah, actually, yeah, they do. First of all, they really asked, like, how did you start and got to where you are now? Because
yeah, I mean, it's as I was talking to, it's like day after day. I mean, you start small, you start with the basics, and you learn one thing, and then the next day you learn another thing, and you learn another thing, and when I started, I didn't know anything about motors at all or robots at all, and you get something very basic and simple, like like the Arduino little computer that could run like a little tiny motor, and like you could get this kit for like $30 and play with it and learn how the basics of these things work, and then you just start building on that knowledge and building on that knowledge and learning and failing, succeeding. You kind of mix and match those processes along the way. And that's the biggest thing. And obviously, finding a community amongst other creatives online or in person to share your ideas and get feedback is also really important as well.
I have another question here from Andres Obando. He mentions, what would you recommend to people in Latin America with limited budget in order to create something as amazing as what you've been creating?
Yeah, I think start with your phone camera, whatever it does. Hopefully you have one or access to a friend's phone that might have slow motion. Most of them, the last few years, have that as ability. Use daylight, just use the regular lights that are around you, and then just try to create cool actions that happen in front of that phone. I started out with just using a very basic camera, like a DSLR camera that didn't do any of these cool things. But I think the big important thing is you have to bend your creativity to the things you have access to. Don't let the things you have access to limit your creativity. So I think that's a really important thing. Like, people have done amazing things with smartphones. People have done very amazing things with just a DSLR camera. It's more than anything about your creativity, your storytelling ability, and how you could do really cool things in front of that camera, and how you tell interesting stories or moments and capture excitement. Yeah.
Another question from Geraldine Garcia. What's your advice for the old school film school that they're in the middle of the transition between analog to digital?
Going from like film to digital video, I guess, is that the question? Yeah.
What's your advice to them, to the people that are?
I think I learned film when I started out, and I'm thankful that I did. I thought, knowing film gave me a good baseline for how things work and understanding it. But I think the reality is don't be stuck in the old routines of like how they did things is how you should do them tomorrow either. I don't listen to any of that stuff. Pretty much is like, just because like, oh, that's how they did it in Hollywood, 10 years ago. Like, it's like, I don't want to do it the same way they did. I want to do it my way. And I think realize that, bring yourself into your process. Like if you're, you find that something is really hard for you, it's not easy for you to do, maybe find a better way for you that works for you to do it, even if it's different than, let's say, how traditional film people do it. As far as digital, I mean, I don't know anybody that shoots film anymore. In that sense, the fact that, that the medium has changed, and who knows what's going to come next. At the end of the day, people joking around, they're like, oh, film versus, slow motion and this and that. I'm like, I'm just making visuals that fit in rectangles. At the end of the day, whatever it is, it goes in a thing like this, no matter what I use and where it's on Instagram or on TikTok or on TV or on a billboard, it's still a rectangle that we're making a visual for. So the way of displaying visuals is obviously always going to change over time, and that's okay. And the way that work is shared is going to be different over time, and that's also okay. Like, just because like, oh, I really loved TV and I don't want to be on YouTube or whatever, just don't get hung up on that stuff, and just realize that like the world has changed so much in the last 10 years, 20 years as to before everything was on TV, now everything is on YouTube or whatever. And just as long as people could see your stories that you're telling, that's all that really matters.
Well, I think it's the greatest advice you can give us, right? Given the situation, it doesn't only apply to your technique, but to the entire world right now and in the industry.
Yes.
Don't get stuck with old habits and be prepared to use new tools and technology. So I think it's a great message.
Yeah, I think great challenges bring great innovation. You know, if taken the right way. You know.
Yes. There's one final question actually, and maybe this is a great way to end the discussion. This is a very basic one from Byron Agila. What is creativity for you?
Wow, it's a big. I need another 30 minutes. No,
It's basic, but actually it's a very complex question. Right?
It is a very complex question. I think creativity is, to me, is tied to how I see the world. You know, I think that, you know, people say that person's really creative or that person's really creative, but a lot of times they don't see themselves as creative. It's just the way that they see the world and how they interpret things and how they could communicate ideas in a different way. And I think that creativity to me is how I tell my view of the world in a different way than other people. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily creative, but it's different. And I think those words, you know, run in parallel a lot of times, is different and creative. But I guess, you know, different would be creative for a good reason. Like creativity, you know, is doing things in a different way for a good purpose, I guess. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I understand. We should schedule another talk for maybe 2 hours about this topic.
Yeah, I'll bring the drinks.
Anyways, Steve, it's been great having you. If you have one last message to your audience, go ahead, and then we can just say goodbye to everyone.
Amazing. Yeah, I would thank you guys for joining me and having me. This was really fun, and I hope it inspires some of you to do some amazing things, you know, a week from now, a month from now, a year from now. And I think, you know, the biggest advice I give you is just, you always have to believe in yourself and believe that you're capable of doing more than you believe that you're capable of doing. And, you know, reach for the stars. The worst thing, you grab a cloud, you know, like just push what you think you're capable of doing, no matter where in the world you are, no matter what your financial situation is, no matter what your family says. You know, I think you got to be true to yourself, and the more true to yourself you could be, and the more you're willing to take chances, the more they'll pay off in life. So, and, you know, stay safe given everything that's going on. And if you can, donate to this amazing cause that's helping everybody around the world.
Great, Steve. Thanks a lot. Great message. And thanks for coming, and thanks for being here with us. And I hope you're doing well with your filming that I think you're shooting right now. So
yeah, we're back to it. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Simon.
All right. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.